If you're like me and you love to travel, one of your bucket list destinations might be the Pyramids of Giza. So, I'm going to give you the top 10 tips and tricks that I've learned. And if you follow the tips in this video, on the day that you go to that magical place, you're going to have the best time. Promise. So tip number 1, you need to know the difference between Cairo and Giza, because the pyramids are in Giza, but you'll probably be landing and staying in Cairo. And I actually recommend that you stay in Cairo. Here's why. It's going to be about a 45-minute car ride from Cairo to Giza the day you go, depending on traffic, but it's going to make it a lot easier for you. And if you're planning on going somewhere else in Egypt or Cairo, it's going to give you a lot more options if you do stay in Cairo than being a little bit stranded in Giza. Tip number 2, if you're able to, make sure that you do climb the Pyramid of Giza, and when you're done, you go all the way around because there's lots to see. Do prepare for the climb inside of the Great Pyramid. You're gonna go up about 10-15 minutes, depending if there's a lot of people and you have to wait, when you will eventually make it inside the King's Chamber, and it is a magical experience. You will come back down, and as you can see, it's not easy. And if you get a chance, don't miss walking around, because you get an entirely different perspective of the pyramid, and you actually get to see some very interesting things around it, a great view of the other pyramids. So that's something I didn't do the first few times that I highly recommend that you actually do the first time you go. Tip number 3, make sure that you avoid July and Friday if you can. Friday is the day off in Egypt, and I don't recommend you go on Friday because it is extra crowded and July is extra hot. So I'm going to give you the best times to go. Tip number 4, make sure you have a driver that day. I know it might sound a little bit strange to you, and in a lot of countries it might not be necessary, but the day in Giza, I really recommend you have a driver, and here's why. Best way to do it is you do have a car and a driver that day that can wait inside the complex. When you're done with the pyramid, they can take you to the next pyramid, or they can take you up to a camel ride, or they can take you down to the Sphinx. And that will cut your walking time, your frustration, any haggling you may have to do to get from point A to point B. Not only does it save you a lot of time waiting around or figuring out how to get from point A to point B inside the pyramid complex, but it's actually going to save you money. I found it was more expensive to piecemeal it and kind of do it step by step, and a heck of a lot more frustrating than to just have a driver that's going to be there. And tip number 5, okay, tip number 6, and this is very important. You really do need to have a local guide that day. It makes your trip so much better. I promise you, trust me on this one. Have a local guide. Might not apply everywhere else in the world, but here it does. It really does.
And the lines which are
I will find the website and leave you the link to the best tour guide I've ever found. Joseph has made every trip of mine amazing, and I've learned so much. I highly, highly recommend you reach out to him if you're thinking of going. Tip number 7, if you want a little break, there's a hidden coffee shop you need to go to. Okay, tip number 8. Try to start your day at 9 and end your tour through the Giza complex. Try to end that by about 1 o'clock. That way you'll have the rest of the day to choose a couple, two great options. I'm going to give them to you right now. And tip number 9, let me give you a few basics. Make sure you have sunscreen. It's hot, and I mean desert heat hot, and the sun is bright. So have sunscreen, drink lots of water, make sure you have a good breakfast because you can forget that day to eat. I promise you, you can forget, then you run out of energy. So make sure you have a good breakfast, drink lots of water, and wear comfy shoes. Ladies, even if you take a bag with like the other shoes, take some extra shoes that are very, very comfortable. And finally, tip number 10, if you want to have a good lunch in between, there's a spot at the Mena house. You don't have to be a guest to stay there, but you can have a great lunch. So if you found these tips helpful, like, share, subscribe, send it to a friend that might be going to Egypt. I promise you, if you follow the tips in this video, they will make your day amazing. You won't be frustrated. It'll be cost effective. It'll be everything you ever dreamed of.